Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Create and Connect Ignite Talks. This is the first of 4 Ignite Talks sessions, and I hope you'll join us for as many of these as make sense for you in your day. My name is Ben Wheeler. I've been a member of the Scratch team since 2018. I'm an engineer and learning designer on the creative learning team and the product teams at Scratch. I wanted to make sure to drop my email and my Scratch username and encourage anybody to reach out to me anytime during or after this session with any questions. You're also probably getting familiar with the chat function. We're going to watch a series of 4 wonderful Ignite Talks videos together, and then we're going to have a question and answer session after that. And I hope you'll all feel totally welcome to leave whatever questions and thoughts that you have in the chat for the presenters to answer, for me to answer, for the whole group to answer, or even for each other. So we're hoping that this is a thought-provoking session for everybody. So again, the format is going to be, I'll finish this intro, we'll watch these 4 videos together, and then we'll have this question and answer session. To just quickly tell you what the 4 videos are, you'll see people's faces and you'll see people's names multiple times, but I wanted to just get these sort of percolating in our heads. First, we'll hear about the need for empathy in driving inclusive technology from the presenter Raymond Abraham. We'll hear about coding as another language, or CAL, a Scratch Junior curriculum from Jess Blake West. We'll hear about Let's Scratch a Melody from Yetunde Johnson. And we'll hear about Join the Nick Olympics, Physical Games with Scratch and Microbit from Ichiro Shimomura. And that last session will also be accompanied in the Q&A with a Japanese language interpreter as well. So thank you all for joining, and let's begin with these wonderful videos.
I'm Abraham Raymond. I'm a programs assistant in the Women's Technology Empowerment Center. I'll be talking on the need for empathy in driving inclusive technology. First of all, we'll be defining what empathy is, all right, and check out some examples and how to implement empathy in inclusive technologies. I define empathy as the art of stepping imaginatively into the shoes of another person, understanding their feelings and perspective, and using that understanding to guide your actions with them. So quickly, I did a map of empathy here. So like I said, empathy is the act of stepping into someone's shoe. That's trying to see how a person's behave from their perspective, not from what you think, not from how you feel, but from their own perspective. That's trying to know that there is a reason for everyone's action, irrespective of the age and whatever they are. So we are just trying to see from their word and understanding their feelings and appreciating them as human beings. Then use all what you've gotten from them to try to understand how you communicate with everyone you see around you. So that's what empathy is. Moving on to some examples. So here I say that empathy isn't a one-size-fits-all emotions, all right? Because every situation is unique. Psychologists Daniel Goleman and Paul Ekman define 3 different kinds of empathy an individual can express. So we have cognitive empathy, all right, is when a person is able to understand what someone else might be feeling and thinking. You should just understand that whatever you are doing or whatever action anybody makes is actually from their perspective, they are making the action. They are actually doing whatever they do. So that's number 1 type of empathy. And we have the emotional empathy, also known as affective empathy. So this is when someone is able to share another person's feeling. Somebody might tell you what they go through, but you might not understand it because you are not actually seeing yourself in their shoes. Then the third example I have here is the compassionate empathy. This compels a person to take action as a result of another's feeling. Know that every human being in life were not put in the perfect place to make the perfect decision. So whatever thing you are going through in life, you should understand that at least for every action, there is a reason. And there for every reason, there is an action. So it goes two-way. So the Inclusive Technology for All is a program that we run in the Women's Technology Empowerment Center that is trying to bring in students with developmental disabilities, trying to take them through the digital world. And the program leverages technology to enhance the problem-solving skills and critical thinking of the students. And this program still helps the teachers and families around our students to understand how to work with the students using technology. This is how we've been able to implement empathy in inclusive technology. So yeah, I say that inclusive technology is designed to be accessible to everyone, regardless of their abilities or disabilities. Empathy in inclusive technology means designing products that are easy to use and understanding for everyone. We are trying to make everyone understand that whatever thing you are trying to create, you should try and understand from everyone's perspective. So whatever product you are trying to build, you are trying to invent, you should try and see it from another person's perspective, not just from your own perspective. It also means considering the needs of people with disabilities and designing products that meet to those needs. Some simple steps we mapped out. So understand the needs of your users. We try as much as possible to involve diverse stakeholders, all right? Involve people that would give you ideas, all right? Use inclusive designs. We try as much as possible to use designs that are inclusive inclined so that it will be able to fit in the shoes of everyone, even with disabilities or without disabilities. Test your designs with real users. Don't just create a product and just put it out there and expect it to work with every user. Implementing empathy, you must try as much as possible to continue improving. That's how we implement empathy in inclusive technology. So I hope these slides would help you to understand empathy in the inclusive world. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jess Blake West, and today I am going to be introducing the Teach Cal online professional development course. Teach Cal is an online, self-paced, free professional development course to guide educators on how to teach Scratch Jr. using the Coding as Another Language curriculum. So before we get into what Teach Cal is, I want to tell everyone what the Coding as Another Language curriculum is. So here at the DevTech Research Group, we work to find many different curricular resources, test them out, validate them, etc. And our main resource that we've created is the Coding as Another Language curriculum. So this curriculum covers grades kindergarten through second grade. For each grade, it has 24 lessons at about 45 minutes long. And the whole idea of the curriculum is to position coding and the learning of how to code with reading and learning how to read and literacy. So the whole idea is that coding is another language. We can use it to express ourselves and communicate. And so just how we can use literacy to sing songs and tell stories and make up new games, we can do all of that with a computer language as well. And so you'll see here in one of our lessons, we code the hokey pokey. So kids use their knowledge of sequencing of the lyrics of the hokey pokey song to transfer that to making algorithms in Scratch Jr. So coming up with patterns that can then show a code to make their character dance. All right. So Teach Cal prepares teachers to know everything that they need to know about this curriculum and to bring it to their own classroom. So Teach Cal can be found on our Coding as Another Language website. We've got the link down right below, and it's offered in both English and Spanish. So the TeachCal site, as I said, is self-paced, so it can take anywhere from between 2 to 6 hours, depending on the pace that you'd like to go. We hear typically that it's about 4 hours for people. It covers the entire course, then as well as the pedagogy that DevTech teaches, Scratch Jr. and how to use Scratch Jr., and then also it takes a deep dive into each of the lessons that you'll be teaching when using the Coding as a Language curriculum. So as I said, it covers, if you can enter the TeachCal program knowing nothing about Scratch Jr., and we will get you all up to speed. So we'll go through the functionalities of the app and the best practices when explaining different functions. It'll also give you little tests throughout that you can then bring to the classroom to check the understanding of your students, as you'll see here. And then it will also look closely at the different lessons that you'll be teaching. And so not only is it going to give you an overview of what those lessons would be, but it'll also engage you with different questions like, what are the learning goals? What are you hoping to bring to your classroom with this lesson? Things like that to get you more deeply engaged with the lesson. And so with that, we're really excited for everyone to go try out the TeachCal online professional development course. Go ahead and check it out with this QR code or this link below. And thank you so much.
My name is Yetunde Johnson. I am an educator of girls and an innovator. And I'm here to share how using Scratch to make a melody made me realize I could use it as a stepping stone to adopting the STEAM approach to enhance computational thinking and programming skills and make coding more attractive to all. Have you ever wondered why most babies' toys have music or sound built into them? Have you noticed how teens can remember all the words, beat, and chorus of their favorite songs? Or watched children on Scratch seek out the music blocks, especially the meow, to drive the teacher mad? I have, and it got me thinking. What exactly does music have to do with learning? How can we harness music to develop children's computational thinking and programming skills and get greater involvement? How could I combine Scratch and music to stimulate my students to enjoy learning programming? It was these thoughts that made me decide to scratch some music. Now, the kids we teach live in a world where music is embedded into much of the digital content they consume on a daily basis. It's a big part of their lives. It's in their games, music, TV ads, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, songs, and more. The music hypnotizes our students, and content creators know this, and they leverage this to keep them engaged with their content. So why couldn't I use that to keep them engaged with programming? Did you know that music videos were the most watched video type on YouTube in the fourth quarter of 2022? Interesting. I decided I wanted to teach my students something which involved music and Scratch. So I found an NCCE lesson about teaching sequencing, a basic programming construct. The students will explore building the famous French nursery rhyme Frère using Scratch blocks. Now, during the lesson, I saw how engaged the children were, especially those students who would normally be distracted or find it really difficult. This was a light bulb moment for me, and I decided to develop a miniature course to teach them how to work out the musical notes in Scratch so that they could begin to create their own simple beginner songs. And one thing about me is I know very little about music. But luckily, we had a great music teacher. And I asked him to tell me what they were currently learning in their music lessons. He gave me one of their simple music sheets, Ode to Joy. It has the notes in numbers, and I had to sit down and try and understand the basic technicalities of music to work out the lessons I wanted to create. I ended up creating a 4-part lesson. It taught them to go from just blocks to notes, from notes to Ode to Joy, and then I encouraged them, once they succeeded in getting Ode to Joy running, to reuse the notes to make any songs they liked. The kids were so excited about the project. They even went as far as going back to the music teacher to tell them they were learning music in computer science, and I found that amazing. But the thing is, developing the lessons took me on a journey into music. I had to learn about technicalities, notes. It took me into getting to know how to convert notes and using mathematical fractions to define them. And then it took me from there into Scratch so that I could click the notes together to get the chorus from analog to digital. It dawned on me that mixing Scratch with music had opened up a world of possibilities for cross-curricular activities. And I hadn't even begun that journey. Was I actually beginning a STEM adventure? Now, most of us have heard the word STEM. It's supposed to integrate the fields of science, technology, engineering, and maths to develop a curriculum that equips students with in-demand skills to work in those sectors. Roll in STEAM. STEAM, the STEM subjects plus arts. Now, according to Georgette Yachman, founding researcher of STEAM, it was supposed to be a framework, or it is a framework, where science and technology are interpreted through engineering and arts, all based in a language of mathematics. It connects the different STEM subjects, including art, in how they relate to real-world problems and solutions. Think about the mobile phone solution to communication on the move. It does have a dash of each of the STEM subjects. So what I've decided, and I just thought I'd share this, I'm exploring how to initially teach computer science to KS3 using this framework so that it becomes more inclusive and attractive to all my students. Scratch is a crucial tool in this journey for creating solutions, generating digital artifacts, recording outcomes, and telling stories along the journey. The world around my students is evolving fast, and as a computer science teacher, I feel the drive to develop too. So I hope I have stimulated your thinking. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Hello everybody, my name is Ichiro Shimomura. I live in Tokyo, Japan. I'm supporting children to learn programming in after school and developing devices using microbit. Today, I'll introduce the Necrolympic. The Necrolympic is a project to create physical sports games that is made by a combination of Scratch, microbit, and exercise equipment. Necrolympic is a coined word of Neko and Olympics. Neko means a cat in Japanese. As you know, Scratch can detect microbit movements by a Scratch link. This project gives STEAM experiences to children by creating their own sports game with Scratch and microbits. Through creating games, children think about their movements of their bodies, sensor functions, and the logic of the program. Also, it is an exercise that can be done indoors, and it can be enjoyed by people of all ages and genders, even with some handicaps. Of course, it is important that the Necrolympic is very fun to play. In the project, we use reasonable equipment and sometimes even kitchenwares. We use microbit as a sensor of movement. Now, we have more than 10 types of sports. For example, 100-meter race, arm wrestling, skateboarding, cycle race, boat race. You can see all examples at my website. Now I will show you some of them. At first, arm wrestling, the player puts microbit on the top of the trainer. When the player treats the trainer, the cat's arm slips. It just looks like the cat is resisting. Next is skateboarding. The player puts the microbit on a board. The board is made to lean to left or right. Then, 100-meter race. The player puts the microbit on one foot and quickly steps in place. The cat on the screen running with the microbit movement. Competitor is programmed to run automatically. I exhibit the Necrolympic at Maker Fair, Scratch Day, and the other events. Some children tell me they would like to make it by themselves. This is a programming school of children in Tokyo. I'm teaching Scratch here. We let them to try the Necrolympic. I hope you will try it in your schools or your homes. Let's join Olympics with children. If you have any questions, suggestions, please feel free to contact me at this email address. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to all the presenters for those fascinating and exciting presentations. So we're going to spend the rest of the time in a question and answer session. So I encourage all participants to think about questions, anything that those presentations brought up for you, anything you want to ask a specific presenter, and then just use their name in your question, or anything that you want to ask the presenters in general, or even that you want to ask other participants. Any questions are welcome. We may not be able to get to every single question, but we're going to try to do the best we can. So please feel free to begin. And let me take a quick look at the chat and see if we're already seeing some that come up. I see that there's a bunch of requests for links to each presenter's work. So so that's something that presenters, I encourage you to share if you don't already see those shared already. Okay, I'm seeing also just some comments about these being fun and interesting in general. So one question that I'm seeing now from Gary, oh, wonderful, thanks for putting that on the screen. Gary is asking, I'm not familiar with microbit. What is it? I think that's a great question. You're probably not the only person who has that. JC from the Scratch team posted a link to an explanatory page that we have on the Scratch site about microbit. But I can sort of answer that quickly in a nutshell. Microbit is a small microcontroller. So it's a circuit board that has some buttons and some LED lights on it and some other things. It can connect to a computer with a USB cord, and it also has a Bluetooth connection. And there's a number of different tools online that are free that you can use to program for the microbit. Scratch has a microbit extension, so you can use it, the buttons and tilting and things like that on the microbit to interact with Scratch projects and to have as part of your Scratch projects. And there's many other tools online that you can use to do programming for a microbit. A very popular and well-known one is called MakeCode, which is made by Microsoft. So I hope that's just a quick orientation towards that. If any of the presenters wants to comment more, Ichiro or anyone about microbit, maybe I would love to hear your thoughts, and Gary might too. I know there's translation happening, so I just wanted to check again. Ichiro, are you interested in speaking briefly about microbit and what is exciting to you about it?
Japan is okay.
Yes.
マイクロビットというのはイギリスのマイクロビット財団マイクロビットファンデーションで、作られたもので、イングランドではすべての、11学年の生徒に配られたというので、世界的にはかなりポピュラーなものだと思っています。日本でもかなりポピュラーに使われていて、小学校の教育でも使われています。
Thank you so much. I'm not quite sure what people are able to see in terms of the interface for different language audio, but if you see in the stage tab that there is a Kudo option to click on. I think you can select your language if you need a particular language that's not the original audio. Okay, wonderful. I'm also seeing a comment by someone in the chat pointing out that there's a Python editor for microbit. There's many different platforms for programming for microbit. And a wonderful thing about microbit is it's relatively inexpensive. It's less expensive than some other options. I welcome some other questions. I have a question that I want to ask the presenters each in general, I wanted to ask what got each of you interested in your topic and your area as a way to engage with learners and with creative coding. So maybe I'll just begin by selecting someone randomly. Yetunde, I would love to know what got you originally interested in this topic of using music as this element of STEAM.
Thank you, Ben. I got into computer science after working in the technology sector with the view of getting more girls involved in coding and computer science so that I'd see more of the flow through. And I find with girls, if we make it engaging, if we make it interesting, they have a greater buy-in to go through all the hurdles of difficulty to get to a creative endpoint. And so I'm trying to encourage more of the, I teach in a girls' schools deliberately right now to see if I can encourage this. And I found with them, I just need to give them a creative project. And music is what a lot of them do. So using, taking music from the analog to the digital is something that I thought would interest them. And it seems to have sort of stimulated their creative juices and their resilience to tackle coding, which they will tell you blindly, I don't want to do.
I love that. I see that natural passion in kids everywhere I go, and it makes so much sense to me to harness that energy as an entry point. Abraham, I would love to hear from you about what got you initially interested and excited about using empathy as this entry point for creative coding.
Oh, all right. What got me into using empathy into creating inclusive technology is because we work with people with developmental disabilities. And the only way we will be able to deliver whatever we are teaching our students is to put ourselves in their shoes, to be able to understand how they tend to focus and get whatever we are teaching them. So if we don't put ourselves in their shoes and we are actually looking for a curriculum that would work with them, of course, we won't get that right. So you have to bring in empathy. That's, you have to put yourself in their shoes to be able to get your curriculum or whatever coding activities you want to bring to these people. So that's what got me into that. Thank you.
It's exciting. I hear so much from other people about the energy right now in socio-emotional learning. It's wonderful to hear about these new projects. I'd love to ask the same question to Jess about what got you initially excited about taking this approach to Scratch Junior curriculum, connecting it with language learning, and you know, what are the advantages of that approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those that need a refresher, Scratch Junior is for early childhood. So kindergarten through second grade, that's about ages 4 to 5 through 7 to 8. And so that's the typical age that kids are learning written language and learning to read and write. And it's their first time that they can express their ideas and communicate in new ways, tell stories, everything like that. And so why not bring in coding as this other method of expression right in parallel with it? Because when kids, you know, their brains are working, they're learning, they're getting everything kind of organized in there, bring in coding right as well, and it can strengthen both of them. They can work together because, you know, technology is really all around us, and coding is kind of the new literacy, you'd say. So just as it's kind of your entryway into society to be able to read and write, we also want kids to have that same literacy with coding skills and technological fluency. So yeah, we're excited about introducing it at this age because of the parallels, and then also in this way because introducing it as a language is a way to think about it with expression and creativity beyond just problem solving. There's problem solving as well, but also all these other opportunities that natural language affords.
Wonderful. And then with help from our translator, I would love to also ask Ichiro this question of what got you initially interested in using microbit and doing this kind of athletic movement with creative technology with children.
Sorry, please say again.
No problem. Hopefully the translator may help to translate my question. What made you excited at the beginning of this work?
そう、やはりスクラッチの画面内と物理的なものとが、シンクロして動くというところに非常に興味を持ちました。
Yeah, I see the translation text, that you were very interested in the fact that physical things can move in sync without a scratch screen. That's something that's been exciting to me as well, seeing the ways that kids can get creative with moving their bodies in technical education, where they may feel like they're a natural speaker of the language of movement. That can be so exciting to me.
そうですね。やっぱり体の動きを直接ゲームに使えるというところが非常に面白いと思っていて、要するにスポーツと、ゲームの一体化というところが非常に興味を持っているところです。でも単にスポーツのゲームだけであれば、任天堂のゲームとかたくさんあるんですけども、プレイステーションとかあるんですけども、それを子どもが自分で作れるというところが一番重要かなと思っています。
I see your point about children making these things themselves, which is a whole different relationship to the project, not just using it, but being the creator. I'm also hearing a common thread in many of the presenters' sort of reflections on their work and what got them into it, in the ways that rather than say we're going to learn coding for the sake of coding, really grounding this coding learning in a why and a how that connects to other interests and to students' own agency, which is really exciting. There's some other questions that we have, and I wanted to encourage everyone in the audience to please feel free to ask questions in the chat. And I also have a question for audience members, for all participants. What's one thing that you've heard about today that was new to you or that you're interested in learning more about? So that's something I'd love to hear from people. You know, which bits are sort of connecting in your head and giving you energy and giving you motivation to keep finding out more. And while participants may be answering that question, I'm curious about the presenters, if anything unexpected happened when you were doing this work. And maybe that's a question I'll just ask any of the presenters. Please feel free to jump in. Was there anything surprising along the way in this work?
For me, I think it's amazing when you give an idea and you give them an endpoint and give them Scratch and then say go. In my head, I'd assumed everybody would come to a similar endpoint, but it just goes to show with those tools, they can create amazingly different outcomes which still meet the criteria. So for instance, taking sound into Scratch, I recently gave some of my class something called Sounds of Summer. And they came out with some incredibly different, mind-blowing outcomes. And I think that's the beauty of this thing. Their own experience, their own feelings, their own wishes actually comes through. So it goes from being general to being quite personal at the end point.
I love that, that when people are taking that initial spark and as learners, they're finding their own new direction that's theirs, that personal connection can be so deep and real. Any of the other presenters, was there anything surprising to you along the way?
I can jump in. So I was presenting on Teach Cal, which is the online professional development course for teachers that are using the Coding as Another Language curriculum. And so in a perfect world, we could do all in-person, synchronous professional developments, and DevTech members could go and teach teachers all of ourselves, but there's only so many of us, and that's why we made this online course. And so I said, that's great. Let's expand accessibility. That's fantastic. And I was a little disappointed that many educators would then be kind of sitting on their own taking this course. And so what surprised me is I started to hear more and more that many educators used this course as they took it themselves, and then they brought it to their school community and expanded upon it and presented in person they brought, the 20 kindergarten teachers that they knew and took all the material that they'd learned from this online course, but then brought it back and made it their own and adapted it. And so it's really spreading to be still an in-person collaborative movement, but it's kind of the online portion is helping it spread. So I was surprised by that and really, really happy.
That's wonderful. It's something I've seen so much of the power of when, as a curriculum designer, you design with the expectation that each educator is going to complete the design process in their own context for their own learners.
All right.
Abraham or Ichiro. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, all right. So what got me into the work with people with developmental disability, back in the days, we used to think here in Nigeria that programming is just doing the CC+ and the JavaScript and all. Then when Scratch programming came in, and we get to understand that it's actually fixing, that's a block-based programming. What got me into it is to watch people with learning disabilities, is to watch people with autism, Down syndrome, some of the time fix this programming language themselves. That's, you could see the zeal in them trying to want to make things out of what they've been taught. You could see the zeal in them trying to want to make sure they play a sound, just clicking and dragging. And from there, they've been able to do a lot of things themselves. Basically, that's what got me excited in them, just to see them do whatever they've been taught perfectly well on their self. Thank
you. Yeah. I'm hearing echoes of some of the other responses here too, these common threads of making it the learner's own and supporting them in that process of discovering and finding these things on their own terms. I love that.
Yeah. Thank
you. Ichiro, I'm curious if you were surprised along the way in this work.
Thank you. そうですね、やはりジョンソンさんの、音楽との関連ですね。これについては私も昔からとても気になっていて、STEAM の中に音楽を取り入れるというのは非常にいいことだと思うんですけども、それと同じように私も STEAM の中にスポーツを取り入れたいと思っています。
You're very interested in using music.
で、STEAM プラススポーツで、STEAMs という言葉が日本ではあるんですけども、同じように、もっと STEAM の中にスポーツを取り入れたいと思っています。
That piece I didn't understand, but maybe that's okay. The automated translation.
Translation is not good, so good.
Sorry.
日本ではSTEAMS、STEAM プラススポーツというのがですね、流行っているわけではないんですけども、そういう考え方があって、STEAM の中にもスポーツがあってもいいんではないかというふうに思っているということです。
Sorry, that piece did not automatically translate. I apologize that the translation isn't functioning as well as I wanted. But one thing I want to encourage presenters and participants to do is please share your email addresses as much as you feel comfortable in the comments, because I'm seeing lots of expression from people that they're interested in different people's work. I see someone saying they think it's an interesting idea to code sports. I'm seeing people say that their students might love to make sports games with Scratch. So maybe some of these commenters and maybe presenters could share your email addresses, and people could connect in whatever ways might make sense for you. Looking at the chat, I saw a question from Suzanne from a few minutes ago asking if there are any tips for using Scratch Jr. with older students within a regular ed classroom where most students are using Scratch. So maybe that's a question we could direct to you, Jess.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of success with using Scratch Jr. at different ages. I think the reason to use it at different ages, so Scratch Jr. was created to take all the wonderful things of Scratch and bring it to children that might not yet be reading, and so or learning to read. And so you can think of an application if a child maybe has dyslexia or is just kind of a little behind and working to get up to speed with reading. Scratch Jr. is a fantastic option to still engage with all of those coding concepts without having the barrier of having to read the commands, because all of the blocks in Scratch Jr. are icon based. So that's a great application. And also it's kind of, Scratch does a fantastic job at being a really friendly interface, and Scratch Jr. just takes it one step further. So if a child is feeling intimidated at all by the coding interface and the idea of computer science, Scratch Jr. is a really nice way to kind of ease into that. So yeah, I think the one other thing, and Scratch supports this just as well, but Scratch Jr. has this really big focus on storytelling. And so if there's ever a focus in a classroom with any age of students where the kids are working on storytelling, I really recommend Scratch Jr. being used there, because there's some direct correlations. There's the page and the go to page block. You can hold up your tablets next to each other and do a multi-tablet story. Check me in my next session, and everything like that. So yeah, I think Scratch Jr. has no limits for ages. We say ages 4 to 7, but we think it can be used at any age. We actually just published a paper from DevTech Research Group finding that we call it low floor, appropriately high ceiling, and our findings showed that the ceiling's pretty high. We didn't actually have any users max out on the capabilities of Scratch Jr. So I think it's a great tool for any age. I have fun with it.
I'm often telling educators and just other adults that I meet how much fun Scratch Jr. is, and how surprisingly powerful it can be. You can really do a lot with it, and periodically we on the Scratch team will sort of sit down and use a particular feature of Scratch and really make sure that we're all creating with it to understand it. And when we've done that with Scratch Jr., every time everybody on the team says they're so struck by how rich it was. It's easy to assume that it's extremely simple and limited, but it's really a wonderful language in its own right that I really encourage people to play with just yourselves even.
Absolutely. I am always learning more. and I work with it every day, so it's great.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Tunde, I saw you. Yes.
Does Scratch Junior have that same classroom capability that Scratch has?
So you're talking about like teacher accounts and things
Yes.
like that?
Yes.
So no, not as of now, no, because Scratch Junior was designed for ages 5 to 7. And so we actually don't have any sort of accounts with Scratch Junior because and Scratch does this so well of this fantastic online community. And when thinking about what was developmentally appropriate for this age, we thought maybe not an online community yet. When they turn 8, they're ready more to have that conversation and what it means to interact with people online. For Scratch Junior, we thought it was kind of a safer bet to have them, work individually on their app. So all the work is saved locally to the app rather than a cloud-based account. And so we unfortunately don't have any way to be used in the classroom with teacher accounts yet. Yeah. That being said, there are a couple workarounds. There are ways to share and export projects out of Scratch Junior, and then they can easily be uploaded to either a Gmail or Google Drive. You could also airdrop them. So when we work with teachers, we usually give them some workarounds of how they can collect all their students' projects into one spot.
The reason I was asking this because like the beauty of that online classroom for me was that I can instantly, without having in a class of 20 to 30 kids, trying to move from desk to desk can be incredibly hard. But actually being able to just zoom in, that feature was, wow, that's really changed my life.
And Scratch Junior is listening to those requests. I think that those requests are not going put to the side. So there's a lot more. Scratch Junior originally was designed not really thinking that it would grow this much, especially in schools. And so now that we're getting more resources and more use out of it, we're kind of rethinking how it should be applied in schools, and definitely teacher accounts, working with single sign-on, all of that is being thought about for the future.
Thank you.
Jess, another question relating to Scratch Junior and CAL, coding as another language. A few people, Hideto, Gary, and Clara, are asking, what's the difference between Scratch Junior and CAL, coding as another language?
Gotcha. So Scratch Junior is the tool. Scratch Junior is the programming environment that kids are learning. Coding as another language, CAL, is the curriculum and pedagogy that we use to teach Scratch Junior. And so coding as another language is a full curriculum that teachers can use and walk through. We also have just papers and books kind of writing more about it's a way of thinking and how to teach code and how to think about code as a language, and rather than, as I said, just problem solving, even though that's still there and it's fantastic. But yeah, so that's the difference, is Scratch Junior is being taught through the coding as another language curriculum. Ben, I think you're muted, just so you know.
Thank you. My AirPods just ran out of battery, so audio. I have a question for Abraham. You were just talking a few minutes ago about helping young learners discover empathy in their own ways. I'm curious if you could say more, because I know too often in education, we say, we the educators already know the answer. Here it is, accept it, to a learner. But with something as personal as empathy, how do you support young people discovering it in their own way, on their own terms?
Okay, I would like to get the question again, because I really don't understand that better. So please, can you go again?
Sorry, I got a little wordy because this is a new area for me as well, and I'm curious how you support kids to discover their own understanding of empathy.
Oh, okay. So first of all, when we started working with kids with disabilities, we first of all, we got there and got to see, because first of all, when we started our programs, we actually were not working with people with disabilities. We had after school program and all. So when we got there, it really shaped my mind to begin to think that, of course, there are people that really needs our help. There are people that really needs what we are taking out to just an after-school club. All right. So when we got there, I got to see them. Then we were like, whoa. For us to be able to help these kids with developmental disabilities, we have to put our mind, shape our mind to begin to think that there's actually a force, or probably there's a reason why they are acting the way they do. Because some of them have this learning difficulty. They really don't have the difficulty because they really want to have a difficulty. It was just something that came. So for you to be able to help them is to see that they are actually working the way they do, not because they really want to do it, but because of the challenges they are having. So if you want to take somebody out of a challenge, some of the time is to bring yourself in their shoes to be able to understand them. Then when you are able to understand them, then you can be able to step by step bringing them out. But some of the time, if you are teaching them, these students, some of them have this low attention span that when they are learning, all of a sudden they don't want to learn again. So in such case, we try as much as possible to calm them down, probably look at what their mind is actually wanting at that time before we get started with the actual class we actually want to teach them. So that's how we've been taking the class. We've been trying to see. It's really not an easy job. It's really not an easy work, but we just feel like if you keep doing the same thing all over and over, one of these days they will pick it up and start working from there. So that's how we've been working with people with developmental disabilities. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, it sounds like the approach that you're describing involves a lot of real particular attention to what each young person needs with their combination of challenges and skills and abilities and disabilities, which is something that I think we all want to see more of in education.
Exactly.
I had a question I wanted to ask Yetunde. You talked in your presentation about the relationship between the different elements of STEAM, the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And I'm curious if you could say more about, do you see arts and engineering in a way as lenses on the other elements? How do they support each other, and how does using one change how the others work?
I think that's a very good question. To know exactly how they work together, it will probably vary from situation to situation. I think they all have a stage in which one will be more dominant than the other to kind of flow into the next stage. So, I mentioned about the mobile phone. It just came to me when I was doing that talk about the mobile phone. When I look at it, every element of STEAM is in there. But the art side, which might be the development of the design, or when you think of an iPhone, because I was a latecomer to iPhone, but I realized that the design of it has really made it so much easier to tap into the functionality. And when you look at what that means to the use, it's one of the most popular phones. The technicalities of it can be easily accessed, though we don't know the technicalities, but they all kind of come together through a good interface, which connects to the engineering, which connects to all the science behind that made it all happen. So I'm not exactly sure how it all flows, but I know that apparently the way STEAM is supposed to work, and I've been looking at it a lot for my school in a sense that I'd like to actually develop it, is that there are 4 stages: the problem, understanding the problem, trying to ignite children to examine the problem, to go through the solution finding, solution development, reiterating the process. So I think at every stage of some degree of it will come in. Maybe earlier on in the design thinking, you'll be looking at the aesthetics. From the design to actually producing it, you'll be looking more at the science, but they do have to tie into work. They do have to work together to produce something that will provide the optimum solution. So I don't have a clear answer to that. I am still a work in progress on the STEAM, but I see it as an exciting way. I don't see anything in today's world that doesn't integrate everything. So for me, what the kids use, what the kids see is an integration of everything. So we need to teach more of the young people how to use that integration. That's the stage I'm at.
It sounds like something that you're pointing to also might be that there's not one way that they have to relate to each other. It may be different in different contexts. And
yeah, I think you said it better.
Yeah. I'm seeing a specific question from Gary about Scratch Jr. Gary's saying, I have multiple students on the same device. Thanks so much for posting it on the screen. How can students save their work separate from each other? So I wonder, Jess, if you have more thoughts on that. My quick answer is that as far as a tablet is concerned, most of the time, it's just sort of in the tablet's account. And if you save a file from an app to that device, anybody else could open it and change it later. If you're on a tablet that is able to have separate sessions for separate users, and I think only a few Android tablets have that kind of setup, that might be a way to do this. But basically, I think there isn't really a way to have that student's saved project not be able to be worked on by anybody else till they come back.
I'll just add briefly. So what I would recommend is using the export and import feature on Scratch Jr. To export, you tap the yellow corner in the top right. That you can then send the project, and then there's an import button right next to the add project button in the project gallery. That's all I'll say for now because I'm looking at the time. But if you want to ask more questions, I am one of the faces behind the info email for Scratch Jr. So feel free to email info@scratchjr.org, and I will be happy to answer any of the technical questions that I'm seeing through the comments.
Yes, I think we're going to bring it to a close. Presenters and participants, again, feel free to share your emails, and I encourage people to reach out to each other and to stay in touch. This is exciting work, and I'm excited to hear how it continues in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much, and I hope to see everyone in other sessions.